Okay guys, to not waste any time, let's talk about reviewing what we covered so far. The major concepts that we covered so far is the difference between water versus lipid-soluble hormones. If I really wanted to, I can come up with so many test questions, but I'm going to come up with like just a handful. But you have to know, in order not to get tricked, you need to know the difference into how they enter versus being outside of the cell. Epinephrine was an example, guys, of a water-soluble hormone, so you have to know how it behaves. And you also have to know that it is short-term stress. If a bear is running towards you 100 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, probably not 100, but that'd be kind of freaky. But if it does, guys, you will release epinephrine for that fast-term stress, like very, very short-term. However, steroid hormones take a lot longer, which is why cortisol is long-term stress. Cortisol is too bad for your body if it's in high levels at a lot of given times. Chances are we are walking around with a lot of cortisol in our body because of that stress. It's not short-term stress, guys. It's the fact that you're worried about an exam in a week versus 2 weeks. That is a long-term stress that you have cortisol inside of your body. You'll see that you gain fat easier in cortisol. Your metabolism slows down. Your blood pressure increases. All bad combinations if we have that for a prolonged period of time. So monitor your stress, right? And now let's go over into these glands. So over here, you have to note, guys, that there are glands that we'll cover throughout this lecture. And let's just kind of cover a couple off of the top of my head, talking about the very important ones. Just like in the body, we covered it in the immune system. There's kind of a hierarchical system. In that case, it goes. Let's go to the next slide. So what you have to note, guys, the head honcho of this organ system, the one that calls the shots, is still the brain, is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is ranked at the top of this whole organ system, the hypothalamus. What the hypothalamus does is it controls another second general, this is like the head, the president. The second underneath it is called the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland is otherwise known as the master gland. The reason why is the pituitary gland in the brain has different cells that produces different hormones that affects different parts of your body. For example, if it's time to grow, the hypothalamus will cause the pituitary gland to release growth hormone that we'll talk about soon. Causes your bones to grow. If it's time to ovulate for women, hypothalamus causes the pituitary gland to release follicle-stimulating hormone. Stimulates the follicles to ovulate. If it's time to breastfeed, the hypothalamus will cause the pituitary gland to release prolactin and oxytocin to cause the breastfeeding to take place. But as you guys can see, this guy is called the master gland. It is the pituitary gland. Which of the following answer choices below is otherwise known as the master gland? It is the pituitary gland. It has different cells that produces different hormones that affects different parts of your body. Another thing is, who here has, it's kind of a hard time, who here has a hard time sleeping? Who here has a hard time sleeping? That's me. Who here is on their phone at least 2 hours before they sleep? It's directly correlated, right? Oh no, professor, doctor, I need the TV on in order for me to help sleep. Then the doctor says, but you're having problems sleeping, right? Have you ever turned off the TV? Right? And so the hormone or the gland that you need to know is the pineal gland. The pineal gland releases a hormone that helps you sleep. It starts with an M. Melatonin. The hormone or pineal gland release melatonin. Another little thing. Have you guys ever noticed that if you try to read in your sleep with the lights off, you get very sleepy? Because pineal gland won't. I know, George passes out immediately. Now's the time. And so the pineal gland won't release melatonin until the absence of light. Get off your phones an hour or 2 hours before you sleep. You'll notice you sleep like a baby after that. Pineal gland won't release melatonin until light is gone. So take away the light. And so, in order to help me sleep in the past, in college, I used to read one chapter of biochemistry. I slept like a baby. Every day, every time was one of the most common things to do. Guys, what is the most common type of feedback in the body? Positive or negative feedback? Negative feedback. Most endocrine system organs function in a sort of negative feedback way, where at the end, when they increase in stuff, we need to drop off this guy, so this has to decrease, so this whole thing can regulate itself. So again, we have the hypothalamus controlling the pituitary, controlling another endocrine organ, and then this guy is in a negative feedback. As soon as this guy increases, that causes this guy to decrease, so it can regulate itself. So there's a very common negative feedback loop in a lot of endocrine system organs that you learn in physiology. Not a lot right now. Yeah, so the hypothalamus, like we said, controls the pituitary. The pituitary is otherwise known as what type of gland, guys? The master gland, which controls another endocrine gland. And so this endocrine gland usually at the end of the line is in a negative feedback with the hypothalamus. So as soon as this guy increases, that tells the hypothalamus to calm down so that it can stop. This process can regulate itself. Very good. As soon as this guy increases, this guy stops. And then everything increases. Very good. So guys, two common hormones that you will see, there are some interactions that go between them. Interactions. There are hormones, and let's see if you remember these terms. Hormones that go against each other. They do the opposite. Would you say these are antagonistic hormones or synergistic hormones? Hormones that go against each other. They antagonize each other. These guys are antagonistic hormones. They go against each other. Antagonistic hormones. One of them will cause something to increase, while an antagonistic hormone will cause the other thing to decrease, as an example. One example, probably one of the most important hormones that we talk about. Guys, if someone has diabetes type 1, what are they lacking? Insulin. The type of hormone interaction that we're going to talk about is the antagonistic hormones insulin versus glucagon. Here is where students fall off. You see, the professor just says it out loud and causes you guys to memorize it. You need to understand what happens in a physiological perspective. What is the difference between insulin versus glucagon? Let's talk about that right now. So number one, the insulin versus glucagon, the question is, what happens to the amount of glucose in the blood? Insulin causes something in the blood, while glucagon causes the opposite in the blood. Does it increase or decrease? You have to know which one belongs where. You can memorize it. I promise you, you'll forget it by next week. So let's understand it, like right now. Here is a cell, and here are glucose in your blood. Okay. These are insulin receptors. Insulin receptors IR. And so what happens is when insulin attaches to these receptors, it causes these guys to open to glucose, and glucose enters. So again, insulin will attach to the insulin receptors, the cells will open up to glucose, and the glucose will enter. Does that mean, guys, insulin decreases the amount of glucose in the blood or increases the amount of glucose in the blood? What do you guys think from this case? Good job. So insulin decreases blood glucose. Decreases blood glucose. No E there. Insulin decreases. One of the most common disorders that people suffer from, I told you guys, if you hear autoimmune, what can you tell me we don't have for that one? No cure. No cure. Diabetes type 1 is an autoimmune disorder where it controls the insulin-producing cells and it destroys them in the body. Your immune system hates the insulin-producing cells. Okay? What happens is with diabetes, if you have no insulin, this doesn't happen. Glucose is toxic, it increases in your blood. Glucose in your blood is present in your urine, which is why we can catch that. You have high presence of glucose in the urine because it spills from your blood, you have diabetes. It's supposed to be in your cells when it's not. Okay? So insulin decreases the blood glucose. Versus glucagon. Guys, if we said these are antagonistic hormones, what do you think it'll do to glucose in the blood? Increase or decrease it? Increases blood glucose. Why? it causes the liver to go through gluconeogenesis. Glucose, genesis, production. Gluconeogenesis. These are the differences between that. Any regular professor will just list them out, but you won't understand. Again, guys, insulin will cause the insulin receptors to open up, decreasing blood glucose. Because the most important part is they're heading in your cells. Glucagon, what happens is it causes the liver to make new glucose. That's it, right? Let's go to the next slide. So again, insulin will head over to the cell's receptors, will take the glucose and put it in the cell, which is why the blood glucose declines. While glucagon will head over to the liver and will make new blood glucose and put it in the blood. That's it. This seems too fancy. We just kind of summarize it like that. Which of the following answer choices below is the correct hormone that decreases blood glucose? It's insulin. Which of the following is the correct hormone that increases blood glucose? It's glucagon. You have to know it activates the liver to make more new glucose. Okay, gluconeogenesis. So that's what it says over here, guys. Insulin reduces blood glucose because the first point is very important, and that's it. It promotes cellular uptake of glucose. It means cells will take it in. While glucagon will cause and stimulate the liver to make more new glucose. The second point is okay, but I like the first point for each. It's the most important part. Insulin causes cells to reuptake glucose, while glucagon causes the liver to make more new glucose. These are antagonistic hormones. Keep that in mind. So again, guys, like we said, the most common type of disorder that a lot of people are fearful for, that used to kill a lot of people, is diabetes mellitus. Mellitus in Latin means honey. Why do you guys think that we named it after that? Honey. It had to do with a sense of taste. Sugar, yes, but also in the past, how did they test if someone is positive for diabetes? Remember, I said a spillover of glucose will be in the urine. What do you guys think they did? Yeah, they tasted that crap. You know, ooh, little swig, little shot of that. So as you guys can see, yes, they tasted it in the past because it should be sweet. An exchange student from Ethiopia mentioned, Professor, that's stupid. What we used to do in Ethiopia without any good tests is we used to put the urine on a rock. If there are flies not attracted to it, then it's urine. But if there are flies attracted to it, then it's diabetic urine, where it has a lot of sugar. And I was like, oh, that's so smart. And so guys, there's two types. You have to differentiate the two because it's very important. If I give someone insulin for one type, it's not going to affect them. It will affect them for the other. Okay? Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disorder where the receptor or the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas are destroyed. We have no cure for that. So those are the correct people that will take shots of insulin because they are the ones that can produce it. Okay? Type 2 diabetes is highly preventable. Type 2 diabetes, what happens is someone eats too much sugar, which causes their cells to be irritated from the presence of high amounts of sugar. They don't want to be affected anymore. What they'll do is they'll decrease the amounts of receptors of insulin. They'll decrease it so that they're not as affected to insulin anymore. Giving someone insulin with type 2 has no effect because they don't have the receptors for it. What you have to do with people with type 2 diabetes is you have to change their lifestyle so that they can be resensitive, to limit the glucose in months to years so that their cells can reuptake or can have more insulin receptors. If you give someone type 2 diabetes insulin, it's not going to affect them. They're just going to piss it out. So that they have to change their lifestyles. And it is highly causable by the environment, but it's also highly preventable too. Okay, what did we say was the head honcho of the whole endocrine system? It starts with an H. The hypothalamus. The hypothalamus controls the master gland, which is the pituitary gland. That's what we say over here. Okay. The most important gland, the hypothalamus will cover in physiology. the most important gland is the pituitary gland. It has, I'm going to do this on purpose, guys. I need you guys to write this acronym down, but look at what you have to know from this and physiology. Okay? The pituitary gland has anterior and posterior pituitary gland. It's in a spot on your brain. It's a little pea-sized gland. Okay, anterior and posterior. What you have to note is the function of around 9 hormones. MPG flat AL. We don't need to know them specifically for this class. I will review them and point out which ones I do want to test. But again, this is the famous acronym. I put a dash here because these guys are in the anterior and these two are in the posterior. So I'll let you guys follow along. I don't want to write them out because it's a waste of time. Let me just list them out. Okay, well, I'll write down the slower ones, the small ones. M stands for melanocyte stimulating hormone. It stimulates melanocytes, guys. What are melanocytes in the body again? They help do what with your skin? Darken them. They produce melanin. The only thing is, guys, your skin do not need MSH. They do that in the presence of the sun. Okay? MSH darkens specifically females' body regions only in a specific time of their life. They can have this time once. Sometimes they can have this time twice. My mom's had this time 4 times. Pregnancy. What 3 regions of a female's body around here darken during pregnancy? See if you guys can get that. So the face is 1. The face is 1, darkens for whatever reason. What about here? Darkens permanently after the first day. Right here. The nipple or the areola of the female darkens permanently after the first hit. Why? Is the baby born with glasses out of the womb? Baby just gets born, like, oh, I can see everything. Freaky. No, it doesn't. So it needs a good target, which is why your body darkens permanently after the first kid, because it's going to assume that you're going to have another. Permanently darkens. Last but not least, and then I'll tell a joke. It's kind of weird, but a professor used to always say that. But what about here? Permanent, or it doesn't permanent darken, it appears during pregnancy.
Like the line.
Linea negra. It's a black line that appears during pregnancy. That's because of MSH. What happens, guys, is we're wearing clothing, so it doesn't affect our species, but our relatives, I'll tell you, with chimpanzees, if the chimpanzee has a black line down her stomach, you best know that no male is going to reproduce with her. It's a waste of sperm. So again, the professor said, if you're ever at a club and you're pregnant, just show that black line, the guys will scamper. It was a freak. So let's talk a little bit about it. It was so weird that she said it, but I never forgot that. Guys, P stands for prolactin. Does anyone want to take a wild guess for females? What does that do? Produce what? Produce milk. Prolactin produces milk. That's released by your pituitary gland in the anterior portion. G stands for growth hormone. Does anyone want to take a wild guess what that does? Help you grow. So at puberty, it helps your bones grow longer, but after puberty, it helps your bones grow thicker. So at puberty, you grow longer with growth hormone. After puberty, you still need growth hormone because your bones get thicker. It drops off when you get older, which is why osteoporosis is very common for people that are older. Okay. FSH. Your shortcut is it's otherwise known as follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone. Anything to do with ovulation for females and sperm production. Anything to do with sexual reproduction, guys, I can bet you. So if you see FSH, you get a test question about it, you pick the answer choice that has something to do with sexual reproduction. I can bet you that'll be the answer. That's your shortcut. Same thing, guys, with luteinizing hormone. Does anyone still remember luteinizing hormone for females? What does that do with their uterus? Thickens it or decreases it? Thickens it. Thickens it. So anything to do with sexual reproduction, pick luteinizing hormone in this case. Last couple, and then Yeah, we'll do a couple minutes of it and then take our longer break, like just go to lunch. A stands for, it's a long hormone, and I'll tell you the test question that I can ask. Okay? ACTH. Spelling goes as follows, because the spelling is, I'll tell you how professors can trick you in physiology. So imagine getting this on a spelling bee. Adrenocorticotropic. Adrenocorticotropic. Tropic means to develop or stimulate, guys. If you have your adrenal glands, we'll market this, we'll repeat this multiple times, so don't worry. What would you guys say is the middle of the adrenal glands? Would you say adrenal cortex or adrenal medulla? Medulla sounds like middle. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, it's okay. So it's the medulla. And cortex means bark in Latin, so adrenal cortex. The outside. Guys, look at this test question. In the future, and even in this class, I will give you a test question, and I won't give you the full name of ACTH, knowing that that's the answer. Which of the following answer choices below is the correct region of the adrenal gland that is stimulated by ACTH? When you know now the name is adrenocorticotropic hormone, what would you guys say? It's got to be the adrenal cortex. That's what the adrenocortical stands for. So which of the following answer choices below is the correct region of the adrenal gland that is stimulated by ACTH? It is adrenocorticotropic, so it's adrenal cortex, equals affected by ACTH. Okay. Adrenocorticotropic hormone affecting the adrenal cortex, C, it causes it to release a long-term stress hormone. What was the long-term stress hormone that starts with the C that we're talking about? Cortisol. This is like, so I'm going to breeze through these slides because these slides just repeat these, so don't worry, we're going to repeat them a lot. Okay, guys, so that's A. T stands for, most professors will not give you their full names. They're going to ask what organ is stimulated by TSH. TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. Does anyone want to take a wild guess what is the organ that is stimulated by this hormone? It is the thyroid gland. It is the thyroid gland. We'll talk about what the thyroid gland later does, but again, the anterior pituitary releasing TSH will stimulate your thyroid gland in the neck, causing you to release another thing that we'll talk about soon. Last but not least, guys, let's talk about ADH. ADH is in the posterior. It stands for, and I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions. Okay, let's take a wild guess, guys. Anti-diuretic hormone. A diuretic, not diarrhea, it's different, but diuretic is a hormone. A diuretic is a substance that makes you do what a lot? Urea, so it makes you urinate a lot. I'm thinking about 3 natural diuretics. One you should drink 8 times a day, one you drink 21 and over, that makes you pee a lot, and one you should drink to wake yourself up. What are the 3 that are diuretics, naturally?
Water.
Water makes you pee a lot, coffee makes you pee a lot, 21 and over. Alcohol makes you pee a lot. Those are diuretic. They make you pee a lot. What do you think an anti-diuretic is? They don't make you pee a lot, they make you retain your water. Retain your water. Anti-diuretic hormone. If someone gets shot and they nick an artery and the artery is spilling a lot of water and blood, they're going to release ADH. It's going to cause them to put in a lot of blood, right? A lot of water. If someone falls, hits their head, and they're internally bleeding, how does a doctor know without opening them up that they're internally bleeding? Their blood level should have a lot of ADH, causing them to retain as much water because they're losing it just as much. That's it. And then before we take our bigger break, we'll cover a couple slides. I'll show you guys that all of this is repeated. The O is one of the most famous hormones. O. Does anyone want to take a look at it? It is the hormone that you release when you love someone, when you touch oxytocin. Oxytocin. Oxytocin, the common theme is touch. Oxytocin is released by touch. So look at these three common themes. All of it involves touch. Number one, when a baby is born and they need to trigger uterine contractions and vaginal contractions, for as long as the baby is touching the vaginal and uterine canal, we will release oxytocin to trigger contractions. Oxytocin with childbirth contractions, it's touch. It's touch. Number two, if a female is in another room, the baby's just born, and then she's on Zoom, so she's busy in a meeting, but she hears the baby crying. She's like closing her eyes, hearing the baby crying. She's imagining herself coddling and touching the baby. She finds out so weird, but she accidentally releases milk, lactation. She's like, why is that weird? Like, why am I releasing milk out of nowhere? Because the baby touching the areola, or she imagines touching the baby, that will cause the release of milk. Oxytocin causes the release of milk by the baby touching the nipple of the female to drink, and that's the case. And so contractions, love hormone, and then milk release, all of it's touch. Same thing. It works the same way. And so look at this, guys. Number one, before we move on, what is the pineal gland? Pineal gland is a gland that releases a hormone that helps you sleep. Pineal gland. It is the melatonin. Pineal gland equals melatonin. Very different from the pituitary gland, which is the master gland. Releases a crap load of other ones. Okay. And so I told you guys, it's written here, same thing. So you can get the shorter version, or you can memorize the longer. I'll test the shorter version. MSH helps darken pigmentation of female during childbirth. Prolactin produces milk. Growth hormone helps you grow during puberty and after. Follicle stimulating and luteinizing hormone, you pick any answer choice that has sexual reproduction in it. Okay. ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, stimulates what part of the adrenal gland? The adrenal cortex, which causes the release of C4 cortisol, long-term stress. Okay. TSH, what does that stand for, guys? Something stimulating hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone. Antidiuretic hormone, test question. Does it make you lose water or retain water? Retain water. When someone is bleeding or if someone is losing a lot of blood. Okay. And last but not least, oxytocin has to do with touch. But guys, we're going to go over them again after the break, but look at this over here. They're all written over here. All written. You don't need to know what type of they are, like proteins or whatever. That's just too hard. You just need to know their effects. Their effects are summarized here, which is the same thing over here. So they're very clever, guys. Very, very clever.
Do I have to know if they're regulated by membrane?
No. So that's physiology. So again, guys, oxytocin. Can we list out the three major functions of oxytocin? What is helping with childbirth? It helps with what? Contractions. What helps after childbirth? It helps release. Okay, so it doesn't produce milk. It helps release milk. Those are two different hormones, guys. If a female is having problems nursing a baby, if their breasts are swollen with milk, then it's not prolactin that they're lacking. They're lacking the release of milk, so they're lacking oxytocin. If they don't produce enough milk, then they're lacking prolactin. But you know the differentiation between the two. Oxytocin helps with the sucking of the baby on the nipple, sends a signal to release oxytocin, causing the release of milk. Childbirth too, and also a love hormone also. Antidiuretic hormone helps you do what again with water? Retain water. Causes the kidneys to install aquaporin channels to put water back in your body. I don't care about the aquaporin, but you see that in physiology. So it just causes to install channels to put water back in the body. Okay, so now before we move on, or before we actually call it a break, we do want to talk a little bit about TSH, because it's probably a very important organ. I don't know if you guys can tell, but the endocrine system is my second favorite organ system because it has a lot to do with affecting your behavior. You know the endocrine system, you know how you behave, pretty much. What did we say TSH stands for again, guys? Released by the anterior pituitary gland. What is it? Thyroid stimulating hormone. So the hypothalamus will cause the pituitary gland to release TSH, which will head over to what gland, guys, that's stimulated by TSH? Thyroid gland. Okay. And so in most cases, what did we say is their interaction between the end of the line and the first person in the line? Is it a positive or a negative feedback? They're antagonistic. It's a negative feedback. Okay. The hormone that you have, and then we'll just drop off and just leave it here. The hormone you have to note that the thyroid gland secretes, it's probably one of the most important hormones. Almost every single cell in your body has receptors for this hormone. It's otherwise known as a couple words. It's either known as thyroxine, number 1, or otherwise known as T3 or T4. Thyroxine is the hormone released by the thyroid gland after the pituitary gland says so. So keep that in mind, thyroxine. In another ink, and then that's it, thyroxine controls a lot about your body. And I'll have you guys guess some disorders. It's highly predictable with basic knowledge. It helps control T3, T4, your metabolism. And then, guys, if you turn on a car for very long and you drive a long time, what happens to the temperature of the engine of the car? It's very hot as a byproduct. When you have a faster metabolism, as a byproduct, the temperature increases. So again, it controls those two things, temperature and metabolism. Guys, you can predict if I see someone with hyperthyroidism, because they have a tumor in their hypothalamus that causes all of this to go rampant. If someone has hyperthyroidism, they produce a lot of T3 and T4. What can you tell me with their metabolism? Very fast or very slow? Very fast metabolism. I have a friend with hyperthyroidism. She's very skinny, and she has to consume at least 3,000 calories a day to try to just get her cells to be very skinny. And then as a byproduct, what can you tell me, even if it's cold outside, what can you tell me with this person? She's always hot. She's always very, very hot, because as a byproduct, her temperature with hyperthyroidism is increasing. I can predict, if I look at a person with hypothyroidism, they have a slow metabolism. What can you tell me with their BMI? A lot higher or a lot higher than normal. What can you tell me, even if they have a lot of fat around their body, what can you tell me with their temperature? Always cold. It's always cold. Yes? They can, but it's usually one or the other mostly. For example, people with like Asian descent for females, they're very common in Grace' disease, which is hyperthyroidism. Very, very common in hyperthyroidism. Yes. Especially Vietnamese. Very common. Yeah.
One of my friends, she had hypo and her mom had hyper. So
Yeah.
the mom's like really thin and she was like really overweight.
Yeah. So it's predictable, but all you need is basic anatomy and physio, and you can get what a person with hyper and hypothyroidism looks like. Very cool. Yeah. So then we can take the longer break, guys, and then we will meet back here at 12:45. We just skipped the rest of it. So I'll rewrite it and have us re-review it. Guys, what's the what did we do last week? Reproductive. Okay. So the reproductive again should be very easy. Look at the whole face terms just right off the bat. I'm gonna make it in like a couple minutes. So look at the whole face terms. We're gonna keep it very light.
Do you need help making it?
What happened?
Do you need help making it?
You need help with it. Sure, Jordan. You make your version, and I'll make my version, and then we'll see what appears, you know. George is like spending like all his minutes making the version.
I'll email you.
Study. No, I got you.
So it would be the whole chapter for reproduction.
Yeah, but then maybe, the first good amount of time, the whole face terms that you know, on the stuff at that surface of food.
When did I stop it?